picture this. You have an artist who completely revolutionized modern comedy.
Oh, totally.
Someone who pioneered this chaotic, deeply human, improvised style of filmmaking. The kind where actors literally just make up their lines on the spot while the camera's rolling.
Yeah, highly experimental stuff.
Yeah. But now, take that image of a freewheeling counterculture comedy rebel and try to square it with this reality. That exact same person holds a literal hereditary British peerage and spent years sitting as a voting member of the actual House of Lords.
It is honestly one of the most phenomenal contradictions in modern entertainment. I mean, you are looking at the ultimate purveyor of lowbrow, awkward, completely spontaneous human comedy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But he's wrapped up in one of the most highbrow, rigid, traditional institutions on the planet. It's wild.
It really is. So today, for our deep dive, we're exploring the wildly unpredictable life of Christopher Guest. And, you might recognize his face as Nigel Tufnell.
The amp that goes to 11.
Yes. The dense but very earnest rock star from This Is Spinal Tap. Or maybe you recognize him as Count Tyrone Rugen, the sinister six-fingered man from The Princess Bride.
Oh, an iconic villain.
For sure. But what we are really going to explore today is how the mind behind those characters quietly reshaped the entire landscape of comedy. And how his really unique background made that revolution possible.
And really, when you look through the sources on his life, his story is fundamentally about the synthesis of opposites.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you see this constant, brilliant tension between worlds. He blends rigorous classical training with, very loose sketch comedy.
Right.
And he balances rigid aristocratic roots with an entirely egalitarian, unscripted approach to making movies. I think understanding that tension is the absolute key to understanding why his work resonates so deeply with people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how someone invents an entirely new rhythm of comedy, you have to look at the raw materials they were built from, right?
Absolutely.
So Christopher Hayden Guest was born on February 5, 1948 in New York City. And his family dynamic is just the definition of a split identity.
Oh, completely split.
Yeah, his father, Peter Hayden Guest, was a British United Nations diplomat who later became the fourth Baron Hayden Guest. But his mother, John Pauline Hines, was an American who had navigated the corporate trenches as a vice president of casting at CBS.
So right away, you have two massive, completely diverging influences.
Oh, yeah.
You have the formal, diplomatic, highly structured British aristocracy on one side, and then the aggressive commercial hustle of the American television industry on the other.
It's quite the mix.
But what is truly fascinating about his upbringing is what was actually missing.
Wait, missing?
Yeah. Despite this heavy aristocratic lineage, both of his parents had become staunch atheists. So Guest had absolutely no religious upbringing.
Oh, which is...
He wasn't handed a rigid moral or, dogmatic framework. He was essentially a blank slate, observing these two very secular, very different worlds from a purely analytical perspective.
It's like he was given a backstage pass to the world's most extreme subcultures. From British high society to the American corporate entertainment machine.
Right, he was just soaking it all in.
And he wasn't just passing through. He was learning the vocabulary of completely different human species. I mean, it's like being raised in a cultural wind tunnel.
That is a great way to put it.
And you really see that cross-cultural immersion in his education, too. He grew up bouncing between the UK and New York City, where he went to the High School of Music and Art.
And that musical education, by the way, is the secret engine behind literally everything he does later in his career.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, he went to the Stockbridge School up in Massachusetts and studied classical clarinet.
Which is very rigid.
Extremely rigid. That requires intense discipline, sight reading, and a really strict adherence to the composer's exact intent. You don't improvise classical clarinet.
Right, of course not.
But while he is immersed in that strict sheet music-driven world, he picks up the mandolin. He gets into country and folk music.
Talk about a pivot.
I know, right? He literally starts playing guitar with Arlo Guthrie, who is a fellow student, and starts gigging with bluegrass bands.
So he goes from a world where every single breath is predetermined by a classical composer to the world of 1960s bluegrass and folk, where it is entirely about feeling, improvisation, and, playing off the person next to you.
Exactly. It's all about the jam.
But how does a kid with a diplomat father and a classical clarinet background take all of that and pivot into sketch comedy?
Because music and comedy rely on the exact same mechanical foundation, rhythm and timing.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, when Guest eventually went on to study acting at NYU's graduate acting program, he graduated in 1971, by the way he treated characters the way a musician treats an instrument.
That makes a lot of sense.
When you belong to so many different worlds, aristocracy, corporate TV, classical music, folk counterculture, you are always slightly an outsider looking in. You learn to observe.
Right, you're always analyzing the room.
Exactly. And because he had the ear of a trained musician, he didn't just mimic what a person said, he replicated their exact cadence, their pauses, the pitch of their voice. He treated human speech patterns like sheet music.
That makes total sense, especially when you look at how he broke into the industry in the 1970s. He started in theater, doing Michael Weller's Moon Children. But his first real laboratory for character building was the National Lampoon Radio Hour.
Oh, that era is so important for him.
Right, because since that was an audio medium, he couldn't rely on a funny wig or a physical pratfall.
Exactly. He had to build three-dimensional, lived-in worlds using nothing but his vocal cords.
And the characters he engineered were absurdly specific, too, like Flash Basbo, Space Explorer, or Ron Fields, this sleazy record rep.
They're just such a specific guy to parody.
Totally. But instead of just listing off the characters he played, let's look at how he actually built them. Take his Mr. Rogers parody from that era. What makes a parody like that work when you can't even see the cardigan and the sneakers?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it relies entirely on weaponizing the rhythm of the original person.
Weaponizing the rhythm. I love that.
Yeah. Guest understood that the defining trait of Fred Rogers wasn't just that he was nice. It was his incredibly deliberate, soothing, almost hypnotic pacing.
Oh, yeah. He spoke so slowly.
Guest would take that exact, slow, comforting cadence and use it to deliver deeply cynical or bizarre dialogue.
So it's a contrast thing.
Exactly. The comedy doesn't come from a punchline. The comedy comes from the friction between how something is being said and what is being said.
Right, like cognitive dissonance.
Precisely. And he did the same thing writing and performing musical parodies of Bob Dylan and James Taylor. He wasn't just doing impressions, he was reverse engineering their musical DNA.
And while he's perfecting this audio character work, he starts popping up in small film roles, right? Like a cop in the Hot Rock, a patrolman in Death Wish.
Yeah, just cutting his teeth.
But then we hit 1975. And we get one of the strangest trivia footnotes in television history. We get the great SNL confusion.
Oh, this is just a phenomenal piece of industry irony.
It really is. So if you're listening, picture this. In September 1975, Guest joins a comedy troupe alongside Bill Murray and Brian Doyle Murray. They are called the Primetime Players.
Okay, sounds familiar.
Right. And they serve as the cast for a variety show hosted by sports broadcaster Howard Cosell. It was literally called Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell.
Well, it just sounds so weird today.
I know. But here's the kicker. 1 month later, Lorne Michaels launches a competing late-night sketch show. And just to mock Howard Cosell's group, Lorne billed his cast as the not ready for primetime players.
Which is such a good dig.
So good. And that second show, of course, becomes the cultural juggernaut we now know as the actual Saturday Night Live.
And Guest's brief stint on the fake SNL didn't burn any bridges somehow. Because almost a decade later, he joined the real SNL.
Oh, right, the 1984 season.
Yeah, for the 1984 to 1985 season, Lorne Michaels was actually gone, and producer Dick Ebersol hired Guest for a one-year-only cast. And it was alongside established heavyweights like Martin Short, Billy Crystal, and Harry Shearer.
He brought a lot of oddball characters to that season, like Frankie, who would always say, "I hate when that happens," or Herb Linkman. But I look at his live sketches, and I wonder, was that really his breakthrough? Because sketch comedy is so broad and punchy, and his style is so nuanced.
That is a crucial observation. The live sketches weren't his most important contribution to that season at all.
They weren't.
No, the real breakthrough happened behind the camera. Gus started directing pre-film sketches for the show.
Oh, the digital shorts before digital shorts?
Exactly. Most notably, he directed a documentary-style short starring Harry Shearer and Martin Short as these intensely serious but utterly incompetent synchronized swimmers.
Which is such a funny visual.
It's hilarious, but if you watch that short today, you are watching him discover his visual vocabulary. He realized that the deadpan, grounded visual style of a documentary could actually heighten the absurdity of the characters. The camera plays it completely straight, which makes the ridiculousness of the subject matter twice as funny.
So the camera is the straight man.
Exactly.
And he's testing these theories while taking on these incredibly iconic supporting acting gigs, too. He's observing Hollywood from the inside. Like, he plays Count Tyrone Rugen in The Princess Bride in 1987.
Hello, My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Classic. And he's the very first customer in the 1986 remake of Little Shop of Horrors. He even played Mary's brother Harry in a 1977 TV gender-flipped remake of It's a Wonderful Life starring Orson Welles.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Guest literally gets the last line of the movie, toasting his sister as the richest person in town.
That is a great trivia fact. He really was a highly sought-after character actor.
He definitely was.
But to actually change the medium, he had to take his musical precision, his hyper-specific character work from the radio days, and that documentary visual style he tested at SNL, and fuse them all together into a single, cohesive method.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you cannot talk about Christopher Guest without talking about the defining character of his career, Nigel Tufnell.
The legend.
Right, the clueless but deeply earnest lead guitarist. He actually first appeared in a 1978 sketch program, but exploded into the cultural consciousness in the 1984 rock satire. This is Spinal Tap.
Such a massive movie.
Guest starred in it. He co-wrote it with director Rob Reiner, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer, and he even composed the music.
And Spinal Tap proved that a feature-length, improvised documentary-style comedy could not only work, but it could become a massive cultural touchstone.
It basically invented a genre.
Exactly. And that success gave Guest the leverage to build his own cinematic universe. Starting in 1996, he began directing his own films, using a method the industry often labels as the mockumentary.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
The empathy is what makes the comedies survive multiple viewings. You actually care about them.
Absolutely.
But, if you're listening right now, I want you to think about a time you had to do a group project at work, or maybe in school.
Oh, the dread of the group project.
Right. Usually there is one person who takes absolute control because they are terrified of someone else messing up the final product.
Yeah, the micromanager.
Now, imagine applying that fear to a Hollywood movie costing millions of dollars. Guest did the exact opposite. He completely relinquished control.
It's pretty amazing.
He built this ensemble cast. People like Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Parker Posey, Fred Willard, Jane Lynch. And he paid everyone the exact same fee and gave them the exact same portion of the profits.
Which is unheard of in Hollywood. I mean, this is an industry entirely built on agents fiercely negotiating for higher quotes and top billing.
Right, but my question is about the mechanics of the filmmaking itself.
Yeah.
Because I have to push back a little on this idea of pure improvisation.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, if you just put a bunch of funny people in a room without a script, it sounds like a continuity nightmare. Like if an actor walks into a scene and just makes up a totally new plot point on the spot, how does the editor even stitch that together? How does the story not completely derail?
Because it isn't a free-for-all. It's a highly structured sandbox.
Okay, a structured sandbox. Explain that.
Gust and his frequent writing partner, Eugene Levy, they don't write dialogue, but they write meticulously detailed backgrounds for every single character.
Like down to the smallest detail.
Yes. They know where they went to school, what their parents did, what their deepest insecurities are. Then they write note cards for each scene that dictate the outcome.
Just the outcome.
Yeah. The card might say, character A must break up with character B, and character B must refuse to accept it. The actors are free to say whatever they want as long as they arrive at that specific destination.
So the guardrails are the plot points, but the journey between them is entirely up to the actor.
Exactly. And because they are chasing the authentic, stumbling, awkward rhythm of real human conversation, they shoot massive amounts of footage. They might shoot 80 hours of film for a 90-minute movie.
80 hours. That is an editor's worst nightmare.
Oh, it's brutal. The actual writing of the dialogue really happens in the editing room, where Guest sifts through hours of improvisation to find the most honest, hilarious moments.
It requires profound trust, doesn't it?
So much trust. The actors trust that Guest won't make them look foolish in the edit, and Guest trust that the actors won't break the reality of the scene just to land a cheap joke.
It is an amazingly egalitarian ethos.
Yeah.
Everyone is equal, everyone contributes, everyone shares the reward. But the irony here is just staggering.
The peerage thing.
Yes. Because at the exact same time he was dismantling the Hollywood hierarchy and creating this totally equal, shared artistic environment, his personal life thrust him into the most rigid, elitist hierarchy on the planet. The British aristocracy.
Just an incredible pivot. So in 1996, right around the time Waiting for Guffman is being released, Guest's father passed away. And upon his father's death, Christopher Guest became the fifth Baron Hayden Guest of Great Sailing in the county of Essex.
And to be clear to everyone listening, this wasn't just some ceremonial piece of paper you hang on a wall, right?
No, this was functional power.
Yeah.
He had an older half-brother named Anthony, but because Anthony was born before his parents were legally buried, the rules of peerage deemed him ineligible to inherit the title.
Wow, those rules are strict.
Very. So it fell to Christopher, and as a hereditary peer, he actually took his seat in the upper house of the UK Parliament.
Just imagine the director of Best in Show sitting alongside dukes and earls debating UK legislation. It's surreal.
It is, but that specific era of aristocratic privilege was actually coming to an end. He sat in the House of Lords until 1999 when the government passed the House of Lords Act.
Right, the big reform.
Yeah, that legislation reformed the chamber and removed the automatic right of most hereditary peers to sit and vote, which effectively kicked Guest out.
His perspective on getting ousted from Parliament is really revealing, actually. You'd think he might be bitter, or maybe just indifferent, since he's this successful Hollywood director.
What did he say about it?
His official quote on the matter is incredibly pragmatic. He said, and I quote, "There's no question that the old system was unfair. I mean, why should you be born to this? But now it's all just sheer cronyism. The Prime Minister can put in whoever he wants and bust them into vote. The upper house should be an elected body. It's that simple."
Wow. It's an incredibly clear-eyed, grounded view from a man who literally inherited a castle's worth of systemic privilege.
Totally.
He acknowledges the absurdity of his own birthright while accurately diagnosing the flaws of the system replacing it. And if we connect this grounded nature to the bigger picture of his life, it makes total sense when you look at his official coat of arms.
Oh, the actual imagery on his coat of arms is wild. It has a mythological caladrius bird, a sun in splendor, 3 Welsh triple harps, and 2 leopards grasping quills. It is incredibly ornate.
It is very intense visually, but the true significance isn't the imagery at all. It's the motto written at the bottom.
What's the motto?
It is non nobis solum nati sumus, which translates from Latin to, "We are not born for ourselves alone."
Wow. That is just beautiful.
Isn't it? Think about the poetic weight of that phrase applied to his life.
Yeah.
For a man who built his entire cinematic legacy on ensemble casts, equal pay, and shared creation, a man who deliberately stepped back as a director and gave the literal words over to his actors, "We are not born for ourselves alone," is the absolute perfect summary of his artistic philosophy.
It really is. And his personal life seems to reflect that quiet, steadfast groundedness, too. I mean, in an industry famous for volatile relationships, he has been married to the actress Jamie Lee Curtis since 1984.
They've been together forever.
Yeah, they got married at their mutual friend Rob Reiner's house. They have 2 adopted daughters, and he has just quietly built this massive, unique legacy.
And he kept working entirely on his own terms, too. In 2013, he took his improvised style to television, co-writing and producing an HBO series called Family Tree with Jim Pittick.
He also did some unexpected stuff.
Like what?
Well, he did a guest voiceover role for SpongeBob SquarePants, playing SpongeBob's cousin, Stanley.
That is amazing.
Right. He even leaned back into his musical roots, playing in an acoustic group called the Bayman Bros, and they released an album in 2009. Plus, he's recognized as a master of rhythm, even holding an honorary doctorate and sitting on the board of trustees for the Berklee College of Music.
That makes total sense given his background.
He even directed a U.S. Census Bureau television commercial that aired during the Super Bowl in 2010. The federal government literally paid $2.5 million for ad space just to get his specific, awkward documentary style on screen.
That's when you know you've made it. But eventually, he decided to step back. After his 2016 film Mascots, Netflix offered him an open door to do another movie.
Oh, a blank check, basically.
Yeah, but by his own account, he just didn't have a specific idea that excited him, so he essentially chose to retire.
That's so rare. Most people just take the money.
Right. He was entirely content to walk away rather than force a project just for a paycheck. Though after a 9-year absence from film acting, he did finally agree to come out of retirement in 2025.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he returned to reprise his role as Nigel Tufnell in the sequel, Spinal Tap 2. The End Continues.
So what does this all mean? When we take a step back and look at the sheer scope of Christopher Guest's life, from the clarinet to the comedy clubs, from the editing room to the House of Lords, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Which is?
We live in an era right now that is defined by intense curation. Everyone is on social media, reading from an invisible script, performing a highly polished, heavily filtered version of themselves. We are terrified of looking awkward.
We really are. Everything has to be perfect.
Exactly. Which is exactly why Guest's work feels more vital now than ever. He spent his entire career hunting for that authentic, stumbling, unscripted human awkwardness. He proved that our flaws, our pauses, and our mundane obsessions aren't things to be edited out.
Yeah.
They are the most beautiful human parts of us.
That's a great point.
We started this deep dive talking about the contradiction of the aristocratic artist. The baron with the coat of arms who gave us the heavy metal guitarist whose amp goes to 11. But maybe it's not a contradiction at all. Maybe Christopher Guest just figured out the ultimate secret. That taking your craft incredibly seriously doesn't mean you have to take yourself seriously.
And that is a legacy worth leaving.